In the heart of Montana's Bitterroot National Forest, a cabin rots beneath the pines. Its floorboards hid more than dust. They buried the sins of a man who tracked the moon like a predator, and the hikers who vanished beneath its light. The journal arrived in an evidence box, reeking of mildew and cedar. Sheriff Dawson flipped it open, the spine cracking like a knuckle. October 13th, 1982. Full moon tonight. Saw her again. The woman in the red jacket. She walked into the mist near Black Elk Ridge. Didn't come out. The entries spanned 15 years, each dated to lunar phases. Waxing gibbous, new moon, waning crescent. 7 names, 7 disappearances. Dawson's flashlight beam trembled as he climbed the cabin stairs. McCullough, the park ranger, had died here. A stroke, they said, alone with his maps and his rifles. But the real story was underfoot. The floorboards screamed when he pried it up. The floorboards screamed when he pried it up. March 7, 1987. They're drawn here, like moths to a flame I keep lighting. McCullough's handwriting grew jagged over the years. The moon tells them where to go. I just follow. Polaroids fell from the journal's pages, hikers smiling at trailheads. Then later shots. A frayed rope in a tree, a dented canteen in a creek, a tent slashed open. December 3rd, 1993. Found another one. Male, mid-30s, nicking around his neck. Asked me about the lights he saw last night. Led him to the ridge. Moon was a blade. He didn't scream. Not once. Dawson's boot crunched on something in the cabin's crawl space. A tooth. Human. Then another. A pile of them yellowed and crowned with old fillings. Above him, the cabin's single light bulb swayed, casting shadows that looked like fingers scraping dirt. July 19th, 1996. They're getting smarter. The last one fought. A dried bloodstain marred this page. Had to take her at the creek. Moon was bright enough to see my reflection in the water. She looked like, no, keep focused. Bury the pack. Keep the journal. Dawson's radio buzzed as he scanned the creek on McCullough's map. Sheriff, we found something. Deputy Walsh's voice crackled. A backpack, half buried near Black Elk Ridge. Inside, a wallet, a wedding ring, and a cassette tape. The tape hissed, then a woman's voice. Please, I just want to go home. He said he's a ranger. He said he'd... A muffled thud. A man humming Moon River. McCullough's voice, soft as rot, almost time. Look, see how full it's getting. The storm rolled in at midnight. Dawson returned to the cabin, the journal burning a hole in his glove box. He missed the first clue. The boot prints leading inside, fresh, not his own. The floorboard was already pried up. Inside the crawl space, a new tooth gleamed, pearl white, a child's molar. Dawson's breath fogged. Behind him, the cabin door creaked shut. The lock clicked, humming. He spun. McCullough's old park uniform hung on the wall, moth-eaten, the badge tarnished. But the humming came from below, under the floor. Dawson's flashlight died as he crawled toward the tooth pile. The air turned frigid. Something brushed his ankle. A hand, skeletal, rising from the dirt. Lunar cycles 28 days, a voice gurgled. You're right on time. They found Dawson's cruiser at dawn. Engine running, door open. The journal was gone. The cabin, empty, save for a single Polaroid on the table. Dawson, eyes wide, framed by pine trees. On the back, scrawled in McCullough's hand, full moon tonight, happy hunting. New hikers vanish now. Every 28 days. The park closed Black Elk Ridge, but the trails keep appearing, unmarked, overgrown, leading to a cabin that isn't on any map. And if you listen to the wind through the pines, you'll hear it. A hummed tune, a shovel biting dirt, and the wet click of a jaw unhinging. Some forests aren't haunted, they're hungry. They found me stumbling through 3 feet of snow, severely hypothermic, babbling about someone living in the walls. The search and rescue team had been looking for us for 4 days by then. They expected to find 6 people at Blackwood Hunting Lodge. Instead, they found only me, and later, what remained of my friends. I spent 20 years trying to convince investigators, psychologists, and eventually myself about what really happened during those 11 days in February 2002. The official report suggests cabin fever, group paranoia escalating to violence, followed by my psychological break, a tragedy born from isolation and extreme conditions, a simple, tragic explanation, but they never found it. And sometimes, late at night, I still hear scratching in my walls. The trip was Ryan's idea, a guy's weekend at his uncle's hunting lodge in northern Michigan to celebrate his upcoming wedding. Ryan, the groom, Mark and Jason, his childhood friends, Cal and Ethan, college roommates, and me, Alex, the tag-along friend from work. None of us were hunters, but the lodge offered isolation, a well-stocked bar, and according to Ryan, the authentic masculine experience before he tied the knot. We arrived on Friday, February 8th. The lodge was exactly what you'd expect. A massive 2-story log cabin with mounted animal heads, plaid furniture, and a stone fireplace you could stand in. The great room featured a wall of trophy animals and antique hunting implements, crossbows, hand-forged traps, primitive spears, and serrated hunting knives. Uncle Paul's pride and joy, Ryan said, gesturing to the collection. Some of the stuff dates back to the 1800s. The caretaker, Edmund, met us briefly upon arrival. A gaunt, weathered man in his 60s with calloused hands and pale blue eyes that never quite met yours. "Storm coming Sunday," he said, handing Ryan the keys. "Could be a big one. Where will you be if we need anything?" Mark asked. "Caretaker's cottage, quarter-mile down the service road." His voice was like gravel under tires. "But I won't hear you from there if it storms. Phone lines go down easy here." We laughed it off. We had supplies, booze, and no real plans to hunt anyway. The potential adventure of a snowstorm only added to the appeal. He left, and we settled in. That first night was perfect. Steaks on the indoor grill, poker, drinking. The next day, Saturday, some of us hiked while others stayed behind nursing hangovers. By evening, the weather reports on the battery radio confirmed a severe system moving in faster than expected. We made jokes about the shining while securing windows and doors. The blizzard hit overnight with unexpected fury. By morning, snow had sealed the first floor windows. Winds howled through the trees like wounded animals. The temperature plummeted. The power flickered, then died completely around noon on Sunday. We weren't concerned yet. The lodge had a generator, plenty of firewood, and enough food for our planned 5-day stay. The first strange incident occurred Sunday night. We were gathered around the fireplace when Cal swore he heard tapping inside the walls, like someone's knocking, trying to get our attention, he said. We laughed it off as the old lodge settling or branches hitting the exterior. But around 3 a.m., I woke to that same sound above my bed. A distinct, rhythmic tapping that seemed to move across the ceiling, then down the wall, then stop at the floorboards beside me. Monday brought heavier snow and the first real tension. The generator failed mid-morning. Ryan and Mark attempted repairs but found the fuel line mysteriously cut. We moved all activities to the great room, keeping the fire going constantly. That night, we heard the scratching, like fingernails or perhaps small tools working at the inside of the walls. Jason suggested mice. Cal wasn't convinced. "I'm telling you. Someone's in there," he insisted, pressing his ear against the wood paneling. "Like who?" "Edmund crawling around with wire cutters." Ethan laughed. "The guy can barely bend over." "Maybe it's Uncle Paul's ghost coming for his booze," Ryan joked. But his smile seemed forced. Tuesday, Cal went missing. He'd gone to the bathroom attached to the kitchen and never returned. We found the bathroom window open, snow blowing in. His footprints led toward the caretaker's cottage, but disappeared in the heavy drifts about 50 yards out. He must have gone for help, Mark reasoned. The storm's letting up. It wasn't. If anything, it was intensifying. That night, the scratching grew louder. We barricaded ourselves in the great room, pushing furniture against the doors. Around midnight, something heavy thudded in the walls, moving systematically around the room's perimeter. Wednesday morning, Ethan discovered a small door behind the gun cabinet, a maintenance access to the space between walls. It had been nailed shut from our side, but someone had pried those nails loose recently. See, I told you. Jason's voice cracked with panic. Someone's been in the fucking walls. We armed ourselves with fireplace tools and kitchen knives. Ryan suggested we follow the service road to the caretaker's cottage. Cal might be there. We can use Edmund's radio to call for help. Mark, Jason, and Ryan ventured out. Ethan and I stayed behind to maintain the fire. Hours passed. The short February daylight faded. They didn't return. That night, I woke to Ethan's scream. In the dim firelight, I saw a pale hand emerging from a previously invisible seam in the wood paneling, dragging him backward. I lunged forward, grabbing his outstretched arms, but the hand had inhuman strength. The panel slid shut with Ethan halfway through, crushing him as it closed. His blood sprayed across my face, warm and metallic. I ran through the kitchen, up the stairs, into a bedroom closet. I stayed there, shivering, listening to movement throughout the house. In the walls, above the ceiling, below the floorboards, the methodical search of a predator who knows his prey is cornered. Around dawn, I heard an irregular thudding from the great room. Using every ounce of courage, I crept downstairs to investigate. The antique hunting implements were gone from the wall. In their place hung my 5 friends, arranged like trophies, their bodies posed with the same care as the animals that had previously occupied the space. Cal's chest cavity had been opened with surgical precision. Mark's eyes were missing. The others, I can't bring myself to describe even now. Below them stood Edmund, meticulously cleaning a bone saw. He turned to me with those pale blue eyes, now alive with terrible purpose. "I've been watching you," he said, conversationally. "You're the most observant. I saved you for last." I ran through snow so deep it swallowed me to the waist. He followed unhurriedly, a crossbow from the collection in his hands. The bolt caught me in the shoulder, pinning me to a tree. As he approached with a skinning knife, a miracle occurred. The distant sound of snowmobiles. The search party had finally come. Edmund vanished into the trees. By the time they found me, he had disappeared completely. The investigation revealed hidden passages throughout the lodge, a honeycomb of narrow corridors built into the original structure, expanded by Edmund over his 15 years as caretaker. They found his observation posts with sight lines into every room, his collection of mementos from previous guests, and journals detailing decades of voyeurism. But they never found Edmund. The state police concluded he perished in the blizzard. My therapist suggests my mind has manufactured the memory of his escape as a way to process trauma. The detective who still calls me occasionally believes Edmund is long dead, but I know different things. Because 3 years ago, I received a postcard from a small town in Alaska. No message, just a picture of a remote hunting lodge. And last winter, during a heavy snowfall, I distinctly heard it. The soft scratching inside my bedroom wall, followed by 3 deliberate taps. Some predators never stop hunting. They just find new walls to hide within. The hunting cabin stood deep in the Montana wilderness, isolated, forgotten. When the Cooper family bought it at a bank auction, it was just a cheap fixer-upper, a remote escape for hunting weekends. David Cooper had always wanted a rustic place of his own, a retreat from the city. His wife, Laura, was less enthusiastic. The place reeked of neglect. Cobwebs hung from the rafters. Dust coated every surface. and the walls bore the faint scent of old wood and something else, something rancid. But the real nightmare began on the second night. Their 12-year-old son, Adam, found a loose floorboard in one of the back rooms. It shifted when he stepped on it, revealing a black void beneath. "Dad, there's something under here." David knelt, using his pocket knife to pry up the board. That's when they saw it. A crawl space, a secret dark place beneath the floor. And inside, a pile of old, forgotten objects. David reached in, his fingers brushing against something soft, leathery. He pulled it out. It was a wallet, thick with age, the leather cracking at the edges. Inside, the ID was faded, the ink almost smudged away. Name: Daniel Riggins. Date of birth: 1965, missing since September 14th, 1994. Laura's breath hitched. David dug deeper. A cassette tape with no label. A woman's necklace, twisted into knots. And then, a Polaroid picture. A woman, bound in a chair, eyes wide with terror. A hand gripping her hair. The Coopers backed away from the crawl space as though it might drag them inside. Something horrible had happened here, and someone wanted it hidden. That night, David couldn't sleep. He lay awake, staring at the wooden ceiling, listening to the creaks of the old cabin settling around them. At 2:43 a.m., he gave in. Grabbing a flashlight, he went back to the crawl space. One last look. But as he knelt, he noticed something off. The wood paneling at the back had seams, like it wasn't just a wall, like it was hiding something. His hands trembled as he pulled at the edge of the wood. It snapped free, revealing a row of dusty journals, lying neatly behind the walls. David grabbed the first notebook. The cover was plain, except for a date written in ink. August 3rd, 1992. He flipped it open, and his stomach turned to ice. The handwriting was small, meticulous. Victim #1, male, 28. Picked him up outside the gas station near Route 16. Told him I needed help fixing my truck. Took him here instead. The chloroform worked faster than expected. David staggered back. The next entry was even worse. Victim #2, woman, mid-20s. She fought more than the first. Had to restrain her for hours. Tape is more efficient than rope. David dropped the book as though it were on fire. His hands were shaking. This wasn't just an old cabin. This was a graveyard. By sunrise, the police had arrived. They took everything. The wallets, the Polaroids, the journals. Forensics teams dug deeper, uncovering more evidence in the crawl space. Then they searched the land. That's when they found the bones, scattered in shallow graves just beyond the tree line. Each skeleton wrapped in plastic bags, buried decades ago. And the suspect? His name was Gerald Whitehall, an accountant, a mild-mannered man who had lived in the city for years, a man who had died in 2005, a heart attack. The world had never known what he did, until now, until the Coopers bought his cabin. 3 months later, Laura refused to talk about it. They had sold the cabin at a loss, but the nightmares never left. One night, while packing the last of their boxes, David found one final notebook. It was tucked inside an old dresser, a journal Gerald had left behind. He shouldn't have opened it, but he did. And on the final page, in faded ink, he read, "Whoever finds this, just know, I never worked alone." David froze. Underneath the sentence, there was a drawing, a crude sketch of a man standing in the trees, watching the cabin, watching them. The Coopers moved that night, and they never looked back. The cabin perched on the edge of Lake Harrow in upstate New York, its cedar walls glowing warm against the slate-gray water. Ben Carver, 38, tossed his duffel onto the porch, the autumn equinox painting the trees in blood red and gold. He'd snagged this solo getaway online. Cheap, remote. Perfect for a guy with no wife, no kids. Just a dead-end job to escape. The air smelled of wet leaves and pine. but a faint whiff of bleach lingered, sharp and out of place. Inside, the place was pristine. Polished floors, crisp sheets, not a speck of dust. Ben dropped onto the couch, the stillness broken by a faint creak. Wood settling, he figured. He'd read the guest book on the table. Peaceful stay, thanks, Ed. Signed by a guy named Tom, dated last September. The owner, Ed Grayson, had emailed him. Gruff, curt, check-in self-serve. Enjoy, Ben shrugged it off, but the bleach smell stuck in his nose. Night fell fast. The lake a black mirror beyond the windows. He was frying a burger when a low hum started. Soft, mechanical, pulsing from the walls. Ben cut the stove, listening. It stopped, but the quiet felt heavy, like someone holding their breath. He stepped onto the porch, flashlight sweeping the shore. Nothing but reeds swaying in the breeze. Back inside, the hum kicked up again, sharper, rattling the pans in the sink. Sleep dodged it. Lying in the loft, he traced cracks in the ceiling, the hum fading in and out. Then came the rustle. Fabric brushing fabric, faint under the floorboards. He sat up, heart ticking, and grabbed his phone. No signal, just like Ed warned. The rustle grew. Slow, deliberate, like a bag being dragged. He crept downstairs, flashlight trembling, and froze. The front door was ajar, though he'd locked it tight. He yanked it shut, bolting it, and checked the windows, all secure. The rustle stopped, but a new sound crept in. A faint tap, like a fingernail on glass bouncing off the walls. Ben's beam hit the guest book. It flipped open, Ton's entry gone, replaced by a blank page. His gut twisted. He rummaged the kitchen, finding a butcher knife, its edge too clean, too sharp for a rental. Dawn broke gray and cold. Ben scoured the cabin, nothing amiss, but the bleach smell thickened near a trapdoor in the closet. Padlock shut. The tap returned. Steady, insistent, from below. He called Ed. No answer, just voicemail. Online, he'd seen the cabin's listing. Cozy retreat, solo travelers welcome. Now that felt like bait. The hum flared, louder, mechanical, vibrating the floor, and he bolted outside, scanning the woods. A truck rumbled up at noon. Ed, stocky, 60s, in a flannel coat, eyes hard. Problem? He asked, voice flat. Ben stammered. Noises. Something's off. Ed smirked, brushing past. Old place creaks, that's all. He unlocked the trapdoor, revealing a generator, humming normal. Ben relaxed, but Ed's hands lingered on the lock, calluses stained dark. Checkouts tomorrow, Ed said, leaving fast, too fast. Night 2 hit like a storm. The hum was back, but uneven, stuttering. Ben gripped the knife, pacing when the rustle surged, close, underfoot. He pried at the trapdoor, unlocked now, and yanked it open. Stairs dropped into shadow, the air sour with rotten bleach. His flashlight caught it, piles of bags, wallets, a cracked phone, all crusted with dirt. The rustle stopped, and he saw her. A woman's id, Lisa Tate, 32, dated September 2011. His knees buckled, seven-eyed, 7 years, all equinox vanishings. The tap exploded, frantic, from the loft. Ben ran up, light slashing the dark. Ed stood there, holding a rag, eyes glinting. You're early, he rasped, lunging. Ben swung the knife, slicing Ed's arm, and bolted downstairs, the man's boots pounding behind. The hum roared. Generator overload. And Ben hit the door, tumbling into the night as Ed's truck roared to life, headlights blinding. He hid in the reeds, chest heaving, as Ed searched, rag dripping something sharp. Chloroform. Dawn broke and Ed peeled out. Ben flagged a ranger, spilling it all. Cops raided the cabin. 7 tourist belongings, scrubbed scenes, Ed's ledger of solo renters, all loners, all gone. Grayson vanished, A ghost in his own game, wanted for murder. Ben moved to Syracuse, swore off cabins. Months later, at a bar, a guy slid him a beer. Gruff, 60s, flannel coat. "Heard you like Lake Harrow," he said, smirking, then walked out. Ben froze. "The voice, Eds." He ran after, but the lot was empty. Just a bleach whiff on the wind and a matchbook on the ground. Harrow's logo, unlit, waiting. In the snow-choked wilds of Wyoming's Bighorn Mountains, there's a cabin that doesn't appear on maps. Its walls remember the Miller family, their laughter, their terror, and the distorted voice on the radio that warned, "Haze in the trees." December 26, 2006. The radio crackled. "Anyone copy?" "This is David Miller, coordinates." A blizzard swallowed the rest. The Millers had checked in daily since Christmas. David, ex-Army, his wife, Lila, their daughter, Sophie, 9. Their last call was cheerful. "Snow's up to the porch, but we're cozy." This transmission was different. Shouting, a wet thud, then 17 seconds of labored breathing before the line died. Tire chains whined as the rescue team climbed the mountain. Deputy Cole's flashlight caught the cabin's roof first, sagging under snow. No smoke from the chimney, no footprints, just the wind howling through pines. Inside, the wood stove glowed cold. A deck of cards fanned across the table. One chair overturned. Cole's beam found the blood. Not pools, but patterns. Handprints dragged down the hallway. A child's mitten, crusted red, wedged in a floorboard. In Sophie's room, the wallpaper ballooned with horses. Someone had scribbled over them in black marker. Eyes, jagged teeth, a figure with too many limbs. The closet door hung open. Cole crouched. Tragedies marred the interior walls. 4 lines at a time. Days. March 3rd, 2011. Hunter Mitch Varga tracked a wounded elk into a ravine. His boot sank through a snowdrift into emptiness. The cave exhaled rot. Headlamp on. Mitch descended. The beam grazed bones. A skull. Adult male, still wearing a dog tag. Miller, David R. deeper in. A nest of shredded parkas. Sophie's pink backpack. Its zipper rusted shut. Inside, a journal. Day 1, Daddy says stay quiet. The bad man doesn't know we're here. Day 14. Mom's leg smells funny. He comes at night. He takes her. Day 27. I counted his steps. 12 to the cave mouth. 12 back. I can run faster. The final page. A crayon drawing. A stick figure family. A stick figure family. A taller figure behind them, holding a knife. Above, a squiggle of radio waves. Back in 6, the forensics team missed the radio's battery compartment. Inside, wedged beside corroded ass. A finger bone, child-sized. The cave bones told the rest. David, dead from a fractured skull. Lila, femur snapped. Signs of butchery. Sophie, no remains. Just the journal clutched in a mummified hand, not hers. But the true horror was the cave wall, etched in soot. He's in the trees, he's in the walls, he's in. And below, fresh letters written in elk blood. You Mitch Vargas truck was found idling at the trailhead. Driver's door open. Search teams scoured the ravine. They heard static first. A faint, tinny buzz from the cave. Inside, an old radio sat atop Sophie's backpack. A loop transmission played. Copy, don't let him. Please, she's just a... The cave's deepest chamber held one last surprise. A camera, its film intact. The developed photos showed Sophie, age 14, glaring at the lens. Behind her, a shadow wielding a bone saw. Behind her, a shadow wielding a bone saw. On the back, an adolescent scrawl. Tell them we're still cozy. Some mountains don't just keep secrets, they groom them. The Blackwood cabin sat deep within the Redwood National Forest, a relic of a bygone era. its weathered logs whispering tales of solitude and simpler times. For the Redwood Wilderness Society, it was the perfect setting for their annual conservation retreat, a chance for their 4 core members to disconnect from the digital world and reconnect with the natural beauty they fought to protect. This year, the crisp autumn air carried the scent of pine and damp earth, promising a weekend of invigorating hikes and thoughtful discussions around a crackling fire. A seemingly idyllic escape, until the quiet screams that never came. The first sign that something was terribly wrong was the silence. By late morning, when the aroma of brewing coffee and the murmur of conversation should have been drifting through the woods, an unnerving stillness clung to the air around the cabin. Ranger Thompson, making his routine rounds, noticed a lack of activity. The group's cars were still parked out front, but the cabin itself remained stubbornly silent, its windows dark and uninviting. He knocked, a sharp rap against the aged wood, but only the echo answered. He tried the door, unlocked. He stepped inside. The scene that greeted him stole the breath from his lungs, a tableau of quiet horror that defied any logical explanation. He found them by the stone fireplace, the remnants of a cold campfire at its center. 4 figures, seated upright, arranged in a disturbingly symmetrical pattern around the dead embers. Their hands were clasped neatly in their laps, their faces strangely serene, almost peaceful in the dim light filtering through the dusty cabin windows. But their eyes were wide open, staring blankly at the soot-stained ceiling, reflecting nothing, seeing nothing, empty, vacant. A profound, unsettling wrongness permeated the stillness of the cabin, a silent scream trapped within its log walls. Sheriff Brody arrived on the scene, his face grim, the years of small-town policing doing little to prepare him for this. Initial shock rippled through his deputies. There were no signs of forced entry, no overturned furniture, no struggle. The cabin was neat, almost meticulously so. Just them. Perfectly positioned like pieces in some macabre display, a chillingly artistic arrangement around the cold heart of the fireplace. The cabin owner, a reclusive man named Arthur Caldwell, was a local oddity, a hermit who'd inherited the property decades ago and lived a solitary existence deep in the woods. Brody ordered a check on him, a formality initially. Caldwell was known to be harmless, a quiet man who kept to himself, seemed harmless. That single word would later haunt Brody's every waking thought. The investigation crawled forward, each step met with a frustrating lack of answers. Autopsies revealed no obvious cause of death, no signs of struggle on the bodies, no defensive wounds. Toxicology reports came back clean. No poison, no drugs. Just 4 healthy individuals, inexplicably dead. A dead end that fueled a growing sense of dread and unease among the investigators. Frustration mounted, the silence of the victims mirroring the frustrating silence of the investigation. Then, weeks into the investigation, a break. A tech specialist, meticulously combing through the cabin for any overlooked detail, found it. A hidden camera, so small, so cleverly concealed within the housing of an old, deactivated smoke detector in the main room. It had been easily missed. The footage, once recovered and painstakingly pieced together, was grainy, the images flickering, but the content deeply disturbing. It showed the conservation group arriving, laughing, talking, settling in for their retreat. Normal, mundane, utterly unremarkable. Then the footage from the second night, under the cloak of darkness, while the 4 members slept soundly in their sleeping bags. Arthur Caldwell entered the cabin. He moved with a quiet, practiced stealth, his face obscured by shadows. He was carrying something unidentifiable, a dark, bulky object draped in a cloth. The camera angle didn't reveal what it was, but the way Caldwell handled it, it spoke of a cold, deliberate purpose. The final hours of the recording were the most chilling. The footage showed the scene discovered by Ranger Thompson. Caldwell meticulously positioning the bodies around the cold campfire, arranging their limbs, tilting their heads, adjusting their clothing, like dolls. His expression was blank, devoid of emotion, his movements precise and deliberate, betraying a horrifyingly calm and focused mind. Caldwell was apprehended at his dilapidated off-grid residence, a shack even deeper in the woods. Questioning him was like pulling teeth. He mumbled incoherently at first, then started talking about patterns, obsessions. Something about completing a set. Something from his past that had been left unfinished, and an unsettling, deeply disturbing vibe emanated from him. A palpable sense of a broken, twisted psyche. Brody ordered a deep dive into Caldwell's history, a search that unearthed yellowed newspaper clippings from the archives. The 1970s, unsolved disappearances that had haunted the region for decades. 4 victims, hikers, all of them, vanished without a trace on a trail not far from Caldwell's cabin. The cases had gone cold, another dark stain on the area's history. The detectives laid out the old photographs of the 1970s victims alongside the photos of the conservation group members. The resemblance was uncanny, chillingly precise. Same build, same hair color, same faces. It was as if Caldwell had meticulously selected his victims, not at random, but based on a twisted, decades-long obsession, a need to recreate something lost, something broken in his past, an obsessive recreation of a tragedy that had occurred decades before. Under intense interrogation, Caldwell finally confessed. He'd seen the conservation group arrive at the cabin. Something about their appearance, their mannerisms, had triggered something deep within his fractured mind. He had to complete it. His collection, his twisted, horrifying masterpiece, meticulously planned and brutally executed, a haunting connection across the decades, a dark echo resonating through the silent woods. The Blackwood cabin now stands silent, a grim monument to a terrifying truth. The woods around it still whisper in the wind, but now the whispers carry a different tone, a darker resonance. The hidden cameras have been removed, the crime scene tape taken down, but the feeling lingers, a cold, unsettling presence in the air. Someone watched. Someone waited. Someone meticulously recreated a nightmare from the past, turning a peaceful retreat into a scene of unimaginable horror. The echoes of that terrible weekend still reverberate through the pines, a chilling reminder that the most dangerous predators often hide in plain sight, their obsessions festering in the darkness, until they finally erupt in a horrifying, unforgettable act. The Polaroids were neatly labeled with dates, cabin numbers, and states. There we were, my husband, our 2 children, and me, all sleeping peacefully in different cabins across 6 different state parks. Photos we never knew were taken. I still remember the exact moment I found the first one, tucked between the mattress and box spring, as I stripped the bed on our last morning at Pine Ridge Cabin in Glacier National Park. That discovery shattered our perfect family vacation and revealed a nightmare that had been following us for miles without our knowledge. I'm sharing this story now because the investigation has concluded, but the psychological wounds may never heal. The knowledge that someone was watching us, standing over our beds while we slept, continues to haunt every night of our lives. Our cross-country trip began on June 10th, 2015. My husband Ken had spent months planning what he called the Great American Cabin Adventure, a 6-week journey from our home in Massachusetts to the Pacific Northwest and back, staying exclusively in state and national park cabins. Our kids, Emma, 9, and Tyler, 7, were thrilled about the adventure. We were the quintessential outdoorsy family. Hiking boots, national parks, passport books, and matching water bottles. The first 2 weeks were perfect. We stayed in cabins at Allegheny State Park, Indiana Dunes, and Badlands National Park. Each location had its own rustic charm: wood-burning stoves, porches with rocking chairs, the comforting smell of pine. We hiked during the day and played board games by lantern light at night. Ken documented everything on his DSLR camera, creating what he called the official family expedition record. The first hint that something was wrong came at our fourth stop, Theodore Roosevelt National Park in North Dakota. I noticed small things. A coffee mug that wasn't where I'd left it. Emma's hairbrush moved from the bathroom to her bedside table. The cabin door that I distinctly remembered locking found slightly ajar in the morning. Kenan attributed it to exhaustion from our long drives. "You're overthinking things, Diane," he said with that patient smile that usually reassured me. But he couldn't explain away what happened in Yellowstone. But we'd spent the day watching Old Faithful and exploring geothermal features. That night, Emma woke us up, insisting someone had been in our cabin. "There was a man standing in the doorway looking at us," she whispered, her small body trembling against mine. He had something in his hands that made clicking sounds. Ken searched the cabin and surrounding area but found nothing. We convinced ourselves it was just a bad dream, triggered by the scary stories another child had told her at the visitor center. Earlier that day, I didn't sleep the rest of the night, listening to every creak of the old cabin's wooden structure, every rustle of pine branches against the windows. 2 stops later came Glacier National Park and a discovery that confirmed my worst fears. The Polaroid showed all 4 of us asleep in the Yellowstone cabin. The photo was taken from the foot of the kids' bunk beds, capturing Emma's stuffed otter tucked under her arm, Tyler's leg hanging off his bed exactly as I remembered from that night. Ken's reading glasses were on the nightstand, my novel face down beside them. The photographer had stood there long enough to carefully compose the shot. On the back, written in precise block letters, "The Parkers, Yellowstone, Cabin 14, Night 3 of 6. My hand shook as I found another photo beneath it. This one showed us at Badlands 2 weeks earlier. Same angle, same detailed notation. Then another from Indiana Dunes. My stomach turned over as the implications sank in. Someone had been following us across the country, entering our cabins while we slept, photographing us, and, most disturbingly, leaving evidence for us to eventually find. Ken immediately contacted park rangers, who called in the FBI. What they discovered was more disturbing than we could have imagined. The ranger who took our statement recognized similarities to reports from 3 other families who had found photos within the past year. All were families with 2 children. All were on extended cabin trips across multiple states. The common denominator: their reservations had been made through the National Park Service's centralized booking system. Agent Larson, a petite woman with the most intensely focused eyes I've ever seen, explained what they discovered after examining the reservation system's backend. There's a maintenance worker, Raymond Kleisch, who has access to the booking database, she told us in the ranger station office. He's worked for various parks for 22 years, moving between locations. The system flags family reservations that fit certain parameters for maintenance priority. Specifically, families with 2 children booking consecutive stays across multiple parks. The FBI obtained a warrant for Kleisch's residence, a remote cabin 30 miles from the western entrance of Glacier National Park. What they found there turned our unsettling experience into something far more sinister. The cabin's main room appeared normal. Rustic furniture, fishing gear, the expected trappings of a longtime park employee. But a locked door in the back led to what Agent Larson called a collection room. The walls were covered with Polaroids, hundreds of them, of different families sleeping in cabins across the country. Each photo meticulously labeled, dated, and arranged chronologically by family. He called them his nestlings, Agent Larson said, her professional demeanor cracking slightly. He selected families that matched a specific profile and followed their journeys. But the photos weren't the worst of it. Kleisch had collected souvenirs from each family. Hair from brushes, used tissues, small personal items unlikely to be missed. A child's drawing. A page torn from a journal. The wrapper from a distinctive candy only available in certain regions. From our family, he had taken one of Emma's hair ties. A pebble Tyler had collected at Badlands. A receipt from Ken's wallet. And, most disturbingly, a page from my personal travel journal where I'd written about a nightmare I'd had at Indiana Dunes. The FBI found detailed notebooks documenting his observations of each family, their routines, conversations he overheard through windows, personality assessments of each family member. He had master keys for every cabin type in the park system, and had developed a method for entering silently, typically between 2 and 4 a.m. when sleep is deepest. Most chilling were his plans for graduation families. Those he deemed perfect specimens after following them across at least 5 states. Our family had been designated for graduation at our final stop, Olympic National Park in Washington. The notebooks didn't specify what graduation entailed, but the room contained hiking maps with remote locations marked, along with rope, duct tape, and a collection of hunting knives. Kleisch was arrested at the maintenance shed in Glacier 3 hours after we reported the photos. He offered no resistance, and according to Agent Larson, seemed almost relieved. I knew the Parkers would be the ones to notice, he reportedly told the arresting officers. Diane has the keenest senses of all my nestlings. The fact that he knew my name, that he spoke of me with such familiarity, still makes my skin crawl. The investigation eventually identified 27 families Kleisch had stalked over 12 years. Most never knew. Some had reported odd occurrences, but, like us initially, had dismissed them as travel fatigue or overactive imaginations. 4 families had reached graduation status before us. The FBI is still working to determine what happened to them. 2 families reported missing person cases in the years following their cabin vacations. A 10-year-old girl in one family, a father in another. Both disappearances occurred during subsequent camping trips, not during the period Kleisch was actively following them. Kleisch refuses to discuss these cases. We never finished our cross-country trip. The FBI put us up in a hotel until we could arrange flights home. We've sold our camping equipment and haven't stayed in a cabin since. Tyler still sleeps in our room most nights. Emma refuses to have her photo taken. Last month, I received a letter from the federal penitentiary where Kleisch is serving his sentence. The FBI screened it before passing it along, assuring me it contained nothing overtly threatening. Still, its contents disturbed me more than any explicit threat could have. It contained a single Polaroid, not of us, but of our house, taken just weeks before our trip began. On the back, in that same precise handwriting, the nestlings always return home. I'll be watching for you from my new nest. The FBI insists this is impossible. The photo must have been taken before his arrest. But they've increased patrols in our neighborhood. We've installed security systems, motion sensors, and cameras, but technology offers little comfort against the psychological damage already done. Sometimes, in the darkest hours of night, I still wake suddenly with absolute certainty that I've heard the distinctive soft click of a Polaroid camera in the darkness. In those moments, I understand the true horror isn't what happened to us, but what continues to happen within us. The permanent invasion of our sense of safety, the theft of our peace of mind. Kleisch may be physically contained, but the fear he planted grows wild, spreading through our lives like invasive vines, choking out any sense of security we once took for granted. And sometimes when I close my eyes, I swear I can feel someone watching me sleep.